The first thing Elias Moreno noticed was the way the woman staggered toward him in the bright afternoon light, as if the day itself were too heavy to carry. Cars rushed past on the wide city street, horns sharp and impatient, sunlight flashing off windshields, but she looked detached from all of it, clutching her side, her face pale and trembling. When she finally reached him, her eyes held a quiet desperation that stopped him cold, and with barely enough strength to stay upright, she begged him to take her to the hospital. In that moment, Elias had no idea that this single request would unravel two broken lives and stitch them back together in ways neither of them could have imagined. If stories about kindness, second chances, and everyday heroes move you, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Padres Héroes Reales. Your support keeps stories like this alive and reminds the world that compassion still matters. Elias Moreno was known in his neighborhood as just another struggling single dad. Every afternoon, after picking up his 8-year-old son Mateo from school, he would walk home under the warm daytime sun, carrying groceries in one hand and his son's backpack in the other. People saw a tired man with lines carved deep into his face, lines that came not from age but from responsibility. What they did not see was the weight he carried quietly, the loss of his wife years earlier, the long nights balancing parenthood with a demanding career he kept deliberately hidden from the world around him. Elias had learned that life did not care how prepared you were. It could tear everything away in an instant and leave you standing there, trying to figure out how to breathe again. That afternoon, he had left Mateo at home with a neighbor for just an hour so he could run errands before returning to prepare dinner. The sun was high, the air warm, and the city buzzed with ordinary life. It was in this unremarkable setting that fate intervened. The woman appeared near the corner of a busy intersection, her beige coat hanging loosely from her shoulders, her dark hair tangled, her steps uneven. She looked around as if searching for someone, anyone, before locking eyes with Elias. He almost kept walking. Life had taught him caution, had taught him that stepping into someone else's pain often meant inviting more trouble into your own already full life. But something about her expression stopped him. It wasn't just fear. It was resignation, the look of someone who had already asked for help too many times and been turned away. As she reached him, her breathing shallow and strained, Elias noticed how she pressed her hand against her lower abdomen, how her lips trembled as she tried to stay conscious. She didn't look drunk or reckless. She looked abandoned. Elias felt that familiar pull in his chest, the same one he felt the day his wife collapsed in their kitchen years ago, the day he learned how fragile everything really was. Without thinking any further, he guided the woman to his car parked nearby, supporting her weight as the afternoon sun beat down on them. She whispered her plea again, barely audible, and Elias nodded, already unlocking the door. Her name, he learned later, was Marisol Vega. She was 32 years old and had been living in survival mode for months. Earlier that day, she had been fired from the small cafe where she worked after missing shifts due to persistent pain she could no longer hide. She had no family in the city, no close friends left to call, and no health insurance. Her partner had walked out weeks earlier when her health issues became inconvenient, leaving her with unpaid bills and a growing sense of worthlessness. By the time she stumbled onto that street corner, she had already tried calling for help and been ignored. Elias was simply the last person she dared to ask. The drive to the hospital felt longer than it was. Sunlight streamed through the windshield, illuminating dust in the air, the city unfolding in sharp, unforgiving clarity. Elias kept his focus on the road, but his mind raced. He monitored her breathing, her color, the way she winced at every bump. Years of medical training stirred awake inside him, instincts he usually kept buried beneath the identity of a tired father just trying to get by. He reassured her gently, telling her they would be there soon, even as he mentally ran through possibilities, symptoms, worst-case scenarios. He had seen too many lives hang in the balance to underestimate what was happening. At the hospital entrance, everything shifted. Nurses rushed forward with a stretcher, voices calm but urgent, the practiced choreography of emergency care unfolding under the bright daylight filtering through the glass doors. Elias gave them what information he could, then stepped back, suddenly just another man in the waiting area, hands clenched, heart pounding. Marisol was wheeled away without ceremony, swallowed by swinging doors that separated the public from the fragile space where lives were decided. Sitting there, Elias felt the familiar ache of helplessness. The waiting room smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee, sunlight pooling on the tiled floor. Around him, people whispered into phones, stared at walls, clutched paperwork. Time stretched and twisted. Memories surfaced uninvited, memories of his wife, of similar chairs, similar hours spent waiting for news that would change everything. He rubbed his temples, reminding himself to breathe, reminding himself that he had done what he could. When a nurse finally approached him, her expression softened as she asked about his relationship to the patient. Elias explained that he was a passerby who had brought her in. The nurse hesitated, then informed him that Marisol was asking for him. Confusion flickered through him, but he followed her down the corridor, past sunlit windows and humming machines, into a small room where Marisol lay pale but more stable, and 4-line taped to her arm. What happened next surprised everyone except Elias himself. As doctors discussed her condition, the complexity of her symptoms, the need for immediate but careful intervention, Elias found himself stepping forward, speaking with a quiet authority that cut through the uncertainty. He identified himself not just as a concerned stranger, but as Dr. Elias Moreno, a top internal medicine specialist with years of experience in complex cases. The room fell silent for a moment as recognition settled. The tired single dad persona fell away, replaced by the professional he had never stopped being. Marisol watched this transformation with wide eyes. Until then, she had seen only kindness and quiet strength in the man who helped her. Now she realized that fate had placed her in the hands of someone uniquely equipped to save her. Tests were ordered quickly, diagnoses refined, and within hours, it became clear that her condition, while serious, was treatable. A delayed intervention could have cost her life. The afternoon light outside slowly shifted, but inside the hospital, hope took root. Over the following days, Elias visited often, checking on Marisol between shifts and parenting duties. He brought small comforts, updates about her progress explained in gentle terms, reassurance that she was not alone anymore. Marisol, in turn, began to open up, sharing fragments of her life, the losses, the shame, the exhaustion of trying to survive without support. For the first time in months, she felt seen not as a burden, but as a person worth saving. As Marisol recovered, something changed in Elias as well. Helping her reignited a part of him he had numbed over the years, a reminder of why he had chosen medicine in the first place, why compassion mattered as much as expertise. He brought Mateo to visit once, letting his son see the impact of kindness firsthand. Mateo, curious and gentle, left a small drawing by Marisol's bedside, a simple picture of the sun shining over a house. Marisol cried quietly when she saw it, overwhelmed by a sense of belonging she thought she had lost forever. Day by day, under the bright rhythm of daytime routines, Marisol grew stronger. Social workers helped her secure resources, medical staff advocated for continued care, and Elias quietly ensured she would not be discharged back into the same hopelessness she came from. He never framed himself as a savior. He knew too well that life was unpredictable, that roles could reverse in an instant. But he believed deeply in showing up when it mattered. When Marisol was finally cleared to leave the hospital, the afternoon sun greeted her like a promise. She stepped outside feeling fragile but alive, supported not just by her healing body but by a renewed belief in humanity. Elias stood nearby, hands in his pockets, watching as she took in the world with new eyes. Their lives would continue on separate paths, but something permanent had been forged between them, an understanding that kindness given freely could ripple far beyond a single moment. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in ordinary daylight moments extraordinary compassion can change everything, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may need hope today. And before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please leave a comment sharing what kindness means to you or a moment when someone helped you without expecting anything in return. Your words might inspire someone who is reading in silence right now. As Elias drove home that day, the sun low but still warm, he felt lighter than he had in years. Mateo chatted beside him, unaware of how close fate had come to crossing their lives differently. Marisol, somewhere across the city, rested with a future no longer defined solely by loss. In a world often too busy to notice suffering, one simple act of stopping, of listening, of caring, had rewritten two stories. And in the clear light of day, it was enough to remind us all that heroes do not always wear uniforms or seek recognition. Sometimes, they are just parents on errands, strangers who choose compassion, people who answer a quiet plea with an open heart.